did transition pictures for Joseph Merrick. Of course, he was known as the Elephant Man because from the age of 5, he had what is thought to be Proteus syndrome, which is a swelling of various parts of the body disproportionately, in this case his head, and a deforming of the overall skeleton. And as he grew older, his head became bigger and bigger. He couldn't, he was a very well-educated guy, actually, and very, very well-spoken, but he couldn't sustain a normal job. So he became part of freak shows and circuses and carnivals. It was so demeaning, but it was his only way of getting out there and earning any kind of living whatsoever. He spent the later years of his life being taken care of in a hospital. He would occasionally go out into the parks, or he would go somewhere by train, but he would book the entire carriage so he didn't have to mix with regular people and be made fun of. But he died in an interesting way because he would always sleep upright because of his head. He couldn't actually lie down. And just once he wanted to feel normal and see how regular people slept. He lay down, and because of the disproportionate size of his head and the weight of it, it simply broke his neck. And he died on his bed of asphyxiation, actually, at the age of 27. So I took a look at his transition pictures. And when I went into the energy, it wasn't like he appeared in that metaphorical cave that I normally see. He was falling incredibly slowly through lights. There wasn't a tunnel, but it was just lights coming at him. It felt really benign, and yet he was in pain as it happened. And I couldn't work out why at first, but actually it was because, you know, when you push the fruit out of an avocado or an orange, you turn the skin inside out and you push it out. That's what was happening in his consciousness. He was leaving this, what must have felt like a heavy trench coat of his mortal self, his physical self, behind, and his spirit, his soul, was being delivered into the cave that I always say, free of any needless ballast, any needless weight. To me, this had the feel of a test he had passed, as though this lifetime he'd had, this short 27-year mortal lifetime, was something that he had agreed to do for a particular reason, almost like a dare. You know how students will say, I tell you what, we'll give you $100 if you'll run naked around the town and come back again. And when they do come back, they get the $100 and lots of cheering and, oh my God, you did it. It was a test, it was a dare. And these lights and this tongue of light that led him down into the chamber felt like a celestial reception committee, like applause, like, well done. Yes, it was painful. Yes, it wasn't fun in any way, but well done for getting through it. Now, did you learn humility? Now, did you learn to love despite everything? Did you learn to forgive your detractors, your critics, those who made fun of you and humiliated you? Did you learn to love them all unconditionally? A test. And once that was stripped away, that outside layer, now he had his freedom. Now he was cheered and rewarded. He was also worn out. This had expended a lot of spiritual energy getting through the life and the transition. And he sat down and he contemplated in silence. Not so much the environment or the sense of dying, but just the relief and the sensation of liberation. That captivated him. I think part of it was that he was a deeply religious guy, and none of this was living up to his expectations. He had had his subjective reality stripped away. It was a disassembling of everything he'd come to understand about life. And he needed God right now. He needed divine intelligence to step up and reassure him. To take this naked soul and wrap it in divine arms and say, "You're fine." Instead, he was just being beckoned to go up this metaphorical tunnel. And because he couldn't resist it, he started walking. At the top of the tunnel, I normally see a kind of dome, a metaphorical light that the person steps into. That's not what happened. The tunnel extended into light. It became a light as he walked towards it. He was being invited in. It was part of this welcoming committee for the dare he'd just completed. But halfway up the tunnel, he takes a look at the light and withers. He turns around, faces the wall, and will not move. And I tried to align with his consciousness just to get some kind of sense of why he wouldn't budge. And what came to me was, I can't face God looking like this. I can't let God see me deformed like this. So imprinted was his deformity on his consciousness that even in the transition period, he hadn't shaken it off at all. His perception was that he was deformed in mortal life, and in spiritual life, he was also deformed, and he couldn't face God with this level of deformity. And as he walked up, he stuck to the side. He clung to the rock. He couldn't walk down the center. Such was his profound shame. But even as he sidled, trembling into the light, his form began to fragment and dissipate as the individual consciousness merged with universal consciousness. Resistance dwindled because he suddenly felt the warmth of unconditional acceptance for who he was at the soul level, not for any superficial irrelevancies. He was home. He felt welcomed. He had never felt that before. It was just pure love, and he dissolved into it and was gone. He had never belonged, and we all need to belong. We so get involved in all this comparison shopping thing of, oh, they're better looking than I am, they're better dressed, they have more money, they have a better job, they come from a better background, their education is better than mine. We do that all the time. It's a competitive environment we live in. But that's mortal stuff. It's not divine stuff. God, divine consciousness, doesn't care what clothes you wear, what job you have, how much money you've earned. None of that matters. What matters is that the naked self, the animating force, the core spiritual self, is congruent with the lifestyle we choose. We don't need other people for that. And maybe that was the purpose of his life. He was so ugly by society's terms that he had to find the beauty within himself in order to survive even for 27 years. And he did his best. He did what he could. But in the end, it defeated him, I think. He didn't ever feel like he belonged. And that's what I learned from Joseph Merrick. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. Subscribe if you like. Share. Follow me on Twitter if you want, at Cash Peters. Otherwise, I'll see you next time, guys. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.